Thank you so much for joining in. We'll just give it a couple of minutes and we'll start the session. There is some interesting facts and figure we want to show you, and of course, there is a great solution for you in store, and we just require your 2 minutes of patience. We'll get started then. Thank you so much for joining in. Just another minute. Much everyone who have joined in. We are looking towards for this session. The session talks about an end-to-end risk management and how do we elevate the role of internal audit with technology. So there are comprehensive 360-degree solutioning that we want to talk about today. And before I start, I just wanted to give a fair amount of introduction in terms of Protiviti and Riskonnect. So Protiviti has recently tied up and aligned with Riskonnect. Riskonnect is one of the very, very comprehensive solution which provides one-stop solution for your entire risks pertaining to your organization. How do you manage it and how do you overcome that? How do you track it real time, monitor, so on and so forth? And I have with me Charles, who will talk about it more. And in terms of, I represent Protiviti, and Protiviti has been known for the GRC space, and it's been very, very strong in this space. And how do we elevate each other in terms of making sure we have a good comprehensive 360-degree solutions? We have so much to talk about this in the coming slides. And of course, the slides also constitutes of all the global leaders talking about the risk in terms of where we are now, what do we see in the next 10 years as well. So without further ado, let me start the presentation. First of all, a fair bit of introduction. So Charles, why don't you start first and then I'll take it over.
So welcome everyone. My name is Charlie Longridge. I'm responsible for global alliances and partnerships. We clearly welcome a great opportunity to work with Protiviti to open up the Indian market. My background is in governance, risk and compliance, but also audit and safety across all industries, including financial services, infrastructure, oil and gas and mining over the last 25 years. So a lot of experience in terms of implementing solutions, but also consulting and advising organizations in terms of how to try and automate their frameworks and processes. And most importantly, keeping it simple, but also interacting with different stakeholders to convince them that this is the right framework and process, and obviously implementing and automating that process with our software.
Thank you. Thanks, Charles. So just a quick bit of introduction about myself. I am Ankit Sharma. I am in this GRC tech space for almost 16 years now. It's been starting from the day one. I've been with this particular area. I started with a product company. I spent 7 years around with that, and again with the GRC tech space only. Then joined a couple of big fours before I moved to Protiviti. And in Protiviti, we have created a big comprehensive tech space within GRC technology, and we offer varied solutions, and Riskonnect is one of our prominent partners here. And for us, we feel it's a great partnership where our GRC advisory club with the implementation technology for the Riskonnect will provide customers end-to-end solution. So looking forward for this session, and thank you so much again for everyone who have joined. Just an FYI, we have a dedicated session of Q&A that we have put in the last 10 to 15 minutes. And of course, if there are questions coming in, a lot of questions coming in, we are happy to extend that for a few minutes as well. So stick around. Like I said, there are a lot of stats that we want to show you during this webinar session. All right. So overall, what's the webinar objective is we want to summarize the entire current risk landscape and what is the need of technology. And especially we want to compensate this with Indian market. Indian market is slowly and steadily adopting the technology when it comes to the risks. And there is immense white space. An organization wants this solution in a way that it can answers to each and every department, each and every area. Second is, why is it important to effectively integrate the other domain into the audit lifecycle where you can leverage technology to automate workflows and improve productivity? So we have seen, at least whatever has been practiced in India, there is a not so integrated approach when it comes to risks, not so integrated approach when it comes to audit. So how do we integrate uh, the entire when it comes to the audit lifecycle or risk lifecycle into one piece, one solution, which can talk to the respective different departments and not only talk to effective different department, but also the technology. And that's what the third point is trying to portray here. That means how data analytics can provide timely, reliable insights to the stakeholders and leadership need. Across Indian organization, we see lots and lots of big landscape of IT. How does this entire 360 degree solutions comes in a way that interacts not only with the respective departments but also integrate with the different technology to uh, mine those, to churn those data, to bring up in terms of what can it lead to a risk, a prominent risk, a significant risk, so on and so forth. So all this we would be talking about during this webinar. Now, just some pulses and facts and figures. Protiviti has been doing a lot of risk surveys, and on a very regular basis, we roll out this risk surveys on the Protiviti websites and also the LinkedIn pages. So do feel free to go out and check out our pulses. On the recent survey that was done, there was 36 risks that was collected, and the risk participants were almost close to 1,200 executive leaders across all designations. And the score that you can see right now here is it has been segregated between 1 to 10. And how the segregation has happened is from 4.9 to almost 5, almost 6, in fact. It is falling under um, potential risks. Above 6 rating, it is significant risks, and below 4.9 or 4.5, it is relatively low risks. Now, we clubbed those 36 risks, sent out for the survey to the executive leadership, and what we found out was the results that we have in front of you. So the top 10 risks that we see now is at 2024. You could see the top one has always been one of the top one has always been cyber threat. And cyber threat, you can see it's been rated at 5.90. That is the collaborative survey assessment that we have done. But at the top notch, what we have seen is economic condition, including inflationary pressure. And yes, when it comes to economic conditions, it talks about your recessions, your global recessions, your inflations that is happening, how much the consumer is urged to buy the product, so on and so forth. Uh, the other one of the important risks that came out was ability to attract, develop, and retain top talent, which is actually a very very recent one, which has been growing since. And if you see the same curvature 10 years down the line, cyber threat takes the top seat, and we know the events that are happening around the world. We know why is it important when it comes to cyber resilience, cyber securities and all. And that's why 10 years down the line, for every department, for every leader, cyber threat is one of the prominent risks that they perceive to have in coming future. Some of the other risks that it talks about is third party risk, which is vendors and all. How crucial it becomes to manage your vendor management, your third party management. How are you managing those risks is extremely important. And this in fact is a one of the prominent risk this year as well. And there are other risks as well. Like I said, there were 36 such risks that was identified, and out of those 36 risks, these are the top 10 risks. Majorly these 36 risks is been segregated into three particular area. One is strategic, one is macroeconomics, and one is operational. And what we can see now, and also at 10 years down the line, most of them are operational risks as well. Yes, there are macroeconomic risk as well, but most of them, what you see in the top 10 curvatures, are belonging to the operational risks. Now, when it comes to the risk, when we talk about the risk at present, when it talk about the risk, what we can perceive in the future, and that is basis upon, like I said, almost 1200 executive leaders globally. So what are the roles and responsibilities? What are the different roles and responsibility that we have in a certain organization, and how do they feel when it comes to risk and how they are managing it? So let's see such kind of statistics now. So this particular slide talk about overall what is the impression and magnitude and severity of the risk for your organization respective to the performance goal. Now, each why do we identify risk is nothing but there is a business objective that is associated with your entire business. For reaching those business objective, there are set of risks, and these risks are nothing but those risks that we have presented, at least the top 10 ones. And how do each leader in within the organization perceive the importance and severity of the risks across all, let's say, leadership? So for example, we see the set of different magnitudes and designations here, which is board member, CEO, CFO, CHRO, CRO, and so on and so forth. For any chief audit executive, which is CAE, you can clearly see for him the magnitude of risk for achieving any kind of goals. It's extremely prominent, and that's why CAE has reported almost 7.14 of that particular importance. And like I said, it is based upon the magnitude and the severity of the risk, whether it is potential, whether it is significantly high, or whether it is low. And but across all respective leaders, across all respective executive committee, you can clearly see each one of them are giving full emphasis that risk, understanding the risk, mitigating the risk, and understanding it way before is extremely important. And how they feel, what are the top other risks? Like I mentioned, is cyber threat is always the top of the game. Economic condition, at least for now, it's on the prominence, and we are seeing there are some geopolitical risk as well. And like we have seen over the last 1.5 year, there's been geopolitical tensions as well that comes majorly on the economical side. Then existing operational IT risk, vendor management, all that belongs to your respective operational risk area as well. All in all, across the board, across the leadership level, everyone wants to make sure there is preempt of the risk management, and uh, there has to be a centralized solution which can make sure to give a certain comprehensive stakes which can help manage all this risk across all department, not at the siloed way. And one of the risks among those top 10 risk was also adoption of the technology, and specifically this talk and this resonate well in the Indian market a lot, because like I said, this adoption of this technology is growing faster, but there are challenges adopting those particular technology solution as well. That's one of the risks that organization is also seeing. Finally, if we talk about specifically on the IT department now, like I said, this particular audit awareness, risk management awareness is growing in the Indian market, and of course globally as well. There are certain departments in each organization who feels whenever there is an IT implementation going on, any kind of IT strategy that is going on, there has to be a need of IT audit as well. Now, why there is a need of IT audit? IT audit gives a clear directions, a perceivance of what they feel implementing this solution can bring on. Whether this particular solution would bring some kind of drastic change, are there risk associated with it? And if there are risk associated with it, what kind of steps needs to be taken, so on and so forth. So this particular pulse that was taken was majorly around to understand within an organization IT department or various other IT department as well, how much they feel the importance of IT audit team is there, and how much they should be part of those particular initiatives when it comes to IT implementation transformation. And you can look at it across top three areas have been IT governance, information security, and data privacy. And blue section represent all the leaders within that department, and orange section represent all the non-leaders. Now, clearly it says that the leadership gives so much emphasis when it comes to building an IT solution, when it comes to building any kind of IT transformation roadmap, there has to be a significant participation from the IT audit team as well. Now, while the non-leaders, which is the team beneath them, things a bit otherwise, but yes, it is growing by as we go down the year, and the transitioning is happening, organizational changes are happening, those transformations are coming in. But all in all, what we see, the top three respective department within an organization, which comes to IT governance, information security, and data privacy, they feel the importance of having an IT audit team for any kind of IT audit transformation and implementation. Their participation is extremely necessary, and this will grow. And like I said, this is a space that is growing. Awareness is growing. Every business wants to grow, but there are risks associated with it in all angles, whether it is operational, strategic, environmental, financial, reputational, all of it. And that's where this particular risk management framework help you to understand those aspects, and what do you have to take, all the steps you have to take to overcome those. Now we talk about the importance of technology. And before we do that, so these are again some of the surveys that we have done, and what we feel whenever an organization trying to go on the road of risk management implementation or any kind of technology adoption, there are some challenges, and you can clearly see those challenges highlighted at the bottom. Now, one of the challenges are current systems are dated and narrow. So executives are not confident in their current RM policies and practice. And this is something that gets changed quite frequently. So we must have, and that's where I mentioned we must have a 360-degree solution, where a solution, while solution is being updated, the content, the risks, the management, the policies, and the procedure around it keeps on updating itself. How do we do that is something that we will talk about in the coming slides. Then the next challenge is 80% of the leaders think that visibility is latent and costly to implement, cannot proactively detect risk related issues. And of course, we are sitting at the digital age. We are sitting at the age of AI. Do we want to tell tool how to detect the risk, or do the tool should be smart enough in order to encapsulate what can be your potential risks? How do you find that risk? And that's where the integration with the respective IT systems being very, very prominent and very, very important for solution to be intelligent enough to bring out those particular risks, bring out that key risk indicators, and then provide the roadmap ahead. So again, something we will touch upon in the future, in the coming slide, sorry. Finally, 80% says risk management lacks integration. One of the very, very known point, there are two aspects in it. There are solution in the market which says that they can specifically integrate to some IT system. There are solution which says that we can integrate to the respective IT system, but we would require some kind of middlewares. But how do we bring a solution which can integrate to all? And that is one of the pain point, because we can't just one organization is not dependent on one IT landscape. There is a big chunk of IT solution that an organization is using, and we have to make sure to provide a solution which can interact with all. And finally, on the content side, how are you regularly updating the risks? How are you regularly updating the compliances? Can we do that? Is a solution that client is requiring? All in all, client needs a 360-degree end-to-end solution. So with that, I think I will hand it over to Charlie, and he'll provide great insights about this great solution.
Thank you, Ankit. Firstly, really just to define what we mean by solution. So solution is not just the software, it's predominantly the people and the process, because we need to look at the culture within your organization, especially when it comes to risk management or even integrated risk management, because we have to instill a collaborative and open communication culture. Okay. When it comes to the framework and the process, yes, there are standards like ISO 31000, COSO, NIST, NIST 2 in Europe, obviously. But The key thing is making sure that it adheres to your objectives, how you drive business performance, but also embracing and understanding and relying on the people to input the relevant information to achieve those objectives. So if it's an objective-orientated process, it becomes a lot easier to then get people to interact with the framework and process to make sure it aligns to the eventual goals and objectives of the organization. Once the framework is in place, then yes, the software can allow all the data to be reviewed and updated in one place. And once you've done that, you can then look at deploying any solution that maps to your framework and process across all of the functions and departments, gaining buy-in from the different stakeholders. This is the point that we start to look at in terms of integrated risk management. It is not something that happens overnight. It is very, very reliant on the people, the process, and the software to deliver that. Okay, so having this holistic view, having a line of sight, making sure that it aligns to the goals and objectives of the organization, but also embraces the people that you would like to input good quality data so that decisions can be made proactively, not reactively, is very important. Next slide, Ankit. So where do we see it? If we were to look at all of our customers, we have around 2,000 customers worldwide that use our software to underpin frameworks and processes developed by organizations like Protiviti, for instance, especially in the audit and risk management arena. Where we were was very much a focused, silo-based process where you have pockets of high levels of risk maturity to identify, assess, and control risks, and in some cases to even mitigate risks aligned to achieving goals and objectives, but also compliance and governance obligations. What we're asking organizations to do is to remove the barrier to communicate and have not just a top-down, but also bottom-up connected approach. And in addition to that, to reach to a more transformational process. And what we mean by transformational is allowing the software to interface with the business critical applications that you have, the ERP solutions, the third party, the compliance data, to really put the risk into more context, to make sure that it is more business critical because it is integrated and aligned to how you measure the performance of your organization with the relevant leading indicators. So what we're striving to do is to take you on this journey to connect the dots in terms of integrating risk, to align them to meet the stakeholder goals and objectives, and effectively transform the way you see risks and opportunities for that matter. Next slide. So the one-stop solution, we can call this a one-stop solution, but ideally speaking, it is a partnership with ourselves and Protiviti, but also with you, the customer. There needs to be a plan that's put in place, and that plan may take 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 years to transform the organization ready to adopt a system, the people, the process, and the software. And to do this, you may start your journey from an internal audit top-down perspective, and then you may go round this wheel, covering all different domains, including enterprise risk management, third party, IT, GRC, even project risk management, compliance, business continuity and operational resilience, which is really closing the loop on the entire risk management process, and even insurable risk as well. And we're one of the unique organizations in this world that covers all aspects, basically having risk under one roof. Environmental social governance is a nuance in here, which is something that is really igniting the passion in governance, risk and compliance, in addition to obviously cyber security, which proliferates itself across all of these elements. Okay. Where we start is really understanding and speaking your language. So from the internal audit teams that Protiviti work very closely with to provide assurance services, and the integrated risk management teams that work closely with audit, but also with compliance and IT, we have typically a way of supporting what we call and what everybody knows as the 3 lines of defense model. So the first line of defense is very much looking at the management of controls and internal control measures. This is the bit that we are looking to open up to get better information, more quality information, using technology, but also not to impose too much change. In other words, keeping it simple, using control self-assessment surveys, using the latest software to ensure that it meets the latest GUI standards, what people are used to, especially in the millennials that are used to using mobile devices and so on. Once we get that input, once we get better quality data, then the second line here in terms of financial control, security, risk management, quality, business continuity, compliance is more up to date. We can then make more proactive decisions, and that can obviously inform internal audit where they can conduct their audits and have relevant information to really investigate what needs to be done in terms of repairing certain controls within these organizations. So it's very important to have that first line and have it in place with a common taxonomy across the organization to really manage the data, but also to get the interaction by empowering people to disclose and respond to controls, but also related risks. So it's not just about promoting awareness, but it's also allowing them the freedom to identify and assess risks to achieving their own goals and objectives so that they can advance within the organization as well, and providing clearly the second line with that level of better quality data. Next slide. So how do we elevate the role of internal audit? Where does it start and where does it finish? I think from what I've learned, and please interject, Ankit, here, but in the Indian market, similar to some markets in the world, there is a strive to grow, a strive to move very, very quickly as an individual to really try and promote yourself within the organization, but also as an organization in terms of being very goals and objective orientated. To achieve this, audit really has to extend its role. It has to embrace risk management. It has to delegate risk champions and advise risk steering groups within the organization to look at where they can connect information, improve transparency and collaboration, and that is highly dependent on the culture within the organization, moving from blame to open, but also to use the relevant information to assess the relevant data. So aligning, putting the risk into context in terms of what objectives can be met, personalizing that, linking those objectives to your key performance indicators, even your potential KRIs and KCIs as well, but ultimately providing that line of sight to management so that they can drill down to the root cause and source of that information to help mitigate the risk, not just control it. To gain that visibility into the vulnerabilities and to also understand the upside of communication, looking at opportunities, not just threats. And then finally, really to easily customize your reporting, to provide the right information to the right people at the right time, to convince stakeholders that this is worth them basing their decisions off. And you can only do that with one, good quality data, underpinned by a simple capability to drop into that data set and make decisions off that. And yes, alert management is key as part of that. The workflow for approval of that information to improve the quality of data is also very much important. But we're asking the audit committees, the internal audit team to work much more closely with the risk management champions, the champions within the organizations that facilitate this communication to elevate better quality data to make more informed decisions. Next slide.
Yeah. So
in terms of an end-to-end solution, I'll let Ankit just introduce this first, and then I'll chip in terms of where I see it as well.
yeah, and I'll continue with that note about how hungry and how passionate people are when it comes to Indian market, and everyone wants to grow wants to grow aggressively. And we know it's time for India. This is our time. A lot of organizations are growing. A lot of startups are there. But for any kind of business to grow, one of the very, very important aspect is to manage those risks, is to have someone to have that capability to perceive a future risks and to mitigate it. And that's how organization grows, if they are able to mitigate all their future risks. And how do we do that? And that's where uh, organization like us, Protiviti, who are prominent in GRC, and I'm quite proud to say that, and with a very, very strong solution like Riskonnect comes together. And like I said, either one of it goes out, then we do not have a comprehensive end-to-end solution. And what also Charlie mentioned, that there are three aspects to it: people, process, and technology. All of it will be delivered. Now, how does Protiviti comes into the picture? Like I said, it's been known for the GRC space very, very strongly in terms of strategizing, in terms of GRs, building your GRC framework, creating your policies and procedure, or redefining your policies and procedure, making sure your compliance is up to date on a regular basis, interpret the regulatory needs, how do we exchange ideas, how are the regulations changing so often, so on a fast pace, and how do we maintain it, sustain it. And then, of course, like I said, one of the risks in the top 10 area, which still is there and which will remain there for the next 10 years, is adoption of the technology. How do we spread that awareness that it's no longer where we are just sitting here and managing the risk through an Excel or a WordPad? No, the time has gone. Every department is coming together. They want to be tightly integrated. No more siloed internal audit execution. It's a central internal audit which has to be connected to all department. So all this building strategies, building frameworks, policies and procedures is something that Protiviti will be providing to you with the implementations of the solution. Like we saw a lot of different solutions under one risk roof, which is risk related to your policies, your controls, your third parties, your ESGs. Everything is integrated, tightly integrated, is put under one roof only. So when these two areas combines, and then the third area is of course the people, which is you, our customers, our very own customers, who we thrive forward. We make sure to deliver at the best quality results. So this is how what we feel is will be a end-to-end solution when everything comes together. Yes, Charlie, over to you.
I think my only point on this is really, when you come to implementing software, make sure you choose a solution that is future proof. In other words, it's not just a tool that will satisfy you for 1 or 2 years, that does or covers just one element of risk management, or just risk management on its own. Make sure that you're buying into a platform that you can grow and integrate with across the organization, that you can also get buy-in from other stakeholders to elevate your position in the organization as the head of audit or the head of risk. I think that's what I have seen over the last 25 years of experience. You don't want this to be a tool that you take off the shelf and occasionally use. You want this to be a system, a proper approach involving people, process, and software. Next slide. So I think one of the big questions that everyone inevitably asks when they do invest in a new framework and software to underpin this is, what's it really worth? What is the return on investment? How much should I invest, and what return do I get from that investment, and within what time period? So we commissioned Forrester, which is a leading analyst, to complete what they call a total economic impact study, which is to help organizations quantify the potential return on investment, in this case of our Riskonnect governance, risk and compliance solution. This particular study took an in-depth look at one financial services firm in the US that implemented our Riskonnect governance, risk and compliance solution, which includes enterprise risk management, internal audit, compliance, third-party risk management, and it projected an ROI over a 3-year period. So prior to using governance, risk and compliance, this particular financial services firm, which unfortunately I cannot name, they really noted how their organization relied on Excel spreadsheets, which I would imagine still is the norm in most of your organizations. Even if you have a system, people sometimes still go back to Excel spreadsheets. They were using this sort of silo-based approach to track their enterprise risks, and they found that the solution was clearly manual and exposed to organizational risk program potential losses. They couldn't track those losses, and therefore they really didn't get a return on investment. The financial analysis found that the organization experiences benefits of $2.6 million over a 3-year period versus the cost of nearly $683,000, adding up to a net present value, an NPV value, of over $1.9 million and an ROI of 280%. Now, I have the full details of this. It's actually on our website, which you can go in to see how much they actually spent on the software. Clearly, when we look at the cost of implementing the software, that is very much a consulting engagement, typically under non-disclosure that we would have with you. But the key findings for these savings were predominantly the reduction in manual labor, the streamlining of a third-party risk management workflow, and the avoidance of any regulatory penalties. This study also offered insights into the benefits that aren't easily quantified, so aren't that tangible, including the advantages of managing risk in real time more proactively, which Ankit mentioned earlier, and with better visibility across business units. In other words, reducing, having line of sight, but reducing risk duplication, and therefore the effort to manage those risks that were duplicated that can be brought together and integrated, as we saw in one of our images right at the start. So happy to share this ROI study with you, which I think would really help establish any of your business cases. So now I think this is not a webinar to demonstrate software. Obviously, this is something that we can do after these sessions independently with yourselves if you're interested. But I wanted to share some insights of what we've learned over the last 15, 20, 25 years in terms of what management teams are expecting, the dashboards, what they're making their decisions of. The starting point for all of this is to make sure that you have an interface that sits on a world-renowned platform. In this case, the second most widely used and deployed business application that's hosted in main data centers. It is, of course, Salesforce. Salesforce offers underpins our platform for governance, risk, and compliance. And what does that do? It provides you a very sophisticated but simple and easy to use and scalable solution on a day-to-day basis, which you can see here, to understand your key data points, to make sure you have that responsibility and can fulfill that obligation to collaborate and communicate amongst your colleagues. So here on the left-hand side, as an audit manager, as an example here, you can interact and review your information, drill down to that data, and you can even communicate, chat, send polls and questions to the team so that you have that constant line of communication as your framework and process expands across the organization, but also integrates with other domains like risk management, compliance, and so on. Next slide. When it comes to presenting to the management team, it's never perfect. They will always ask to have something in a different color. They will always want to have their own personalized view in order to differentiate amongst others. And they will always have an opinion on that information and the way that it's presented. The number one thing we have to get right before we present anything is the quality of data, and to make sure that it's up to date, as close to real time as possible. In today's world, we've got to make it look good. People expect that, number one. But number two, the data has to be relevant to that particular stakeholder and allows them to play around with their own views, but also ready to present at any board meeting. And this technology allows us to not only present the right information to the right people, but it also allows them to play around with it and to extract it into PowerPoint slides and present that with live data. So it's a very, very powerful mechanism across all domains, not just audit and risk, but compliance, third-party risk management, and so on. So having that visualization is very important. Capturing the trends is also important. And one thing I see a lot of is that you shouldn't just focus on risk management. You may have a fantastic view of reducing risk over time, increasing opportunities, but your losses are going up and you're relying more and more on insurance. You've got to get both of these schools right. You've got to get both of these domains right in terms of reducing near misses and losses through better risk management practices. We would rather you have more risks and manage them effectively than have more losses. Okay. We also want you to focus on the root causes. And there are techniques here like bow tie analysis, which is the following slide, Ankit. And bow tie analysis is not an overcomplicating way of looking at a risk, the causes and consequences, and prioritizing the controls, which is designed to do. It's a better way of getting line of sight on which controls are really working and understanding where the controls sit with respect to the causes and consequences of any risk event. So here in this particular example, we have a risk generically called bribery and corruption. We have some root causes on the left-hand side, and then in different colors, red and green, we have some preventative controls of which we need to focus the eye on any particular controls that we think are currently ineffective, i.e. in a color red, or showing a warning sign alerting certain people that they need to remediate this particular control. Okay, so having that line of sight into the data prompted by email alerts and having a simpler way of looking at that control and looking at what it's connected to is a much better way, we think, of addressing these problems. Next slide. We can also transpose that into a more sort of correlated view. And what we mean by this is not just looking at one individual control, but looking at how it relates, not just to the risk, but also those incidents, achieving objectives, looking at the underlying processes and activities that it's associated with, and getting to that information very quickly by just clicking on any of these links and to updating that information. Having that holistic correlated view is really, really important, not only to understand the context of the risk, but also to reduce the amount of time and effort that's spent in managing it, which I think is what we're trying to achieve here. Next slide. So I think we've used up quite a lot of the time. We have, I think, 15 minutes left for questions. Just to go back to that previous slide, just to summarize, I assume, what we've achieved in terms of what we've discussed. We wanted to take a current view of risk in terms of what this landscape looks like in the Indian market, but also to some extent benchmarked against data from the rest of the world. We wanted to project where we are and where we could be in 10 years' time and how to manage that, how to embrace technology, not run away from it, and the importance of elevating the role of internal audit to embracing risk management, removing silos and so on, and then to make the most of that data, to present it in a way that's to ensure the quality of data, that it's more timely, but also that people will understand the information they're using to make more informed decisions. And hopefully we've achieved those objectives. So we now would like to open the floor up to any questions.
And I understand there are a lot of questions in the chat window. So Vanshita, if you can just read out a couple of them.
We have a question from Vineet. He's asking how it would stand out from the peers. I guess it is during the session. So if you can answer. And the other one is people are asking the cases. They want if you can share some of your case studies.
Okay.
Yeah, just on the case studies, that's on our website, riskonnect.com, riskonnect.com, riskonnect.com. We can put that in the chat as a link. It's also on our final slide with our to connect with us. How do we distinguish ourselves from the competition? Is that the first question?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I think the key thing is that we partner with organizations, and in order to understand organizations in your part of the world, because we're an American headquartered office, but very much an international business, we use partners like Protiviti, and that's very, very important because we want to provide a managed service. We want to make sure that our software sticks. We believe we have the best software. We believe we can demonstrate and distinguish ourselves from the software, but the software is only as good as the way that it's been implemented and supported within your organization. Okay, so that's probably the safest way of me trying to answer that question without giving too much away, but also allowing you to connect with us independently from this session to provide your own view of how we can distinguish from a functional standpoint.
Yeah, and just to add on what Charlie mentioned, so there are lots of solutions in the market. What we have seen, like I said, one of the important aspect is there are solutions which are focused on one particular IT system. They are sitting on the top of that. But there are solutions which would require, which can connect to some IT system, and but they would require middleware for that. That would also not, we have seen not so successful. And what we see with Riskonnect is, first of all, they are bringing in one stop solution for any kind of risk. There is one umbrella. And with the platform that it is sitting upon, Salesforce, it has potential to integrate not just to your main ERP system or your core banking system or any other main financial system, but a lot of homegrown system as well. And for us, for a solution, or for you people, for an organization to perceive risk for the future, we have to really do those really, really complex data analytics. And how can we do that? We have to first make sure that all your data is in place in the right structure, and Riskonnect can consume the data, provide you those KRIs and alerts pre-handed, rather than building some kind of, let's say, static solution and then provide you some kind of analysis on that, which is like a post-mortem. Here, what we believe is a generation AI. The solution should be smart enough to build in those logic or to update those solution automatically to bring those particular perceivance when it comes to risk identification. And what most importantly Charles mentioned is, as much as you can identify the risk, the more safer you are, rather than as much as loss that you're incurring. And for that to happen, there has to be an intelligent solution which can talk to so many different backgrounds. And that's what Connect will provide you.
There's always a question on AI. Is there a question on AI? Because there's always one that we'd like to try and answer.
I don't see anything, but I think we can touch upon that.
Okay, well, let's maybe finish off on that one as well. But any other questions that you would like to raise?
Yes, there are two more. One question is, as an internal auditor, how can we give assurance on audit trail provision? So there is a Company Act which has recently been passed last year on the audit trail. Audit trail in terms of making sure all your main financial system has to have an audit trail mechanism. So is there a way we can track that and provide some kind of reporting on the real-time basis?
Yeah, so from a technology standpoint, we capture the information. We typically extract it into a data warehouse to do some trend analysis, and also to look at benchmarking exercises as well, which is a service Protiviti provide. It's very important to make sure you do have an audit trail, because typically you want to see how it's getting better or worse. You want to look at the health of your framework and process. And by trending over time, I think that's very important, especially using leading indicators as well, techniques, key risk indicators, and so on. But yes, we extract into, most typically we use Tableau, Power BI, and of course Domo as well. So there are a multitude of different technologies. We really adopt whatever is best for yourselves, because we want to mix this with other solutions such as your ERP solutions and your customer satisfaction solutions as well.
Yeah. And Charlie, we also now have a question on AI. It says, any case studies on AI analytics performed from Riskonnect? Yeah.
We are all embracing AI. We have very much invested in AI. AI, when it comes to risk management, is obviously only as good as the quality that you've got. So once you build up a good quality risk register, then using techniques like suggestive analysis, generative AI, and so on, especially for looking at emerging risks, is very, very powerful. But if you're pointing AI at the wrong data, it's quite dangerous, I would say, or at least it would be quite misleading. We are embracing AI with resilience, and we've just released a new white paper on business continuity in AI, again, accessible from our website, riskconnect.com. You just have to search on Google for that, or any other search engine. And we are also looking at other techniques, especially when it comes to cybersecurity risk in terms of threat intelligence, and integrating that data into our software as part of a project this year as well. So yes, the answer is we're embracing AI, but we can only point it at good quality data, is the message I'd like to get across.
Yeah. We have one more question saying that, is my understanding correct that Riskonnect is a preferred partner for Salesforce when it comes to GRC implementation?
Yes. So basically, we use Salesforce or the Lightning platform to build our technology on top and to configure the solution. We don't typically integrate with other Salesforce orgs, but that is a request, especially for potentially Net Zero Cloud, the ESG platform, but potentially with CRM. I mean, normally CRM doesn't, I would say, integrate with risk management. But what we can do, and this is very powerful, is build on top of that. So if you have skills in Salesforce, they can be used to configure and customize the solution. And we provide you that level of training in order to create your own workflows. And of course, Protiviti can help in that respect as well. The other key thing is that it's super robust, highly scalable, and accessible using the Salesforce data centers, and Hyperforce, which is now available in India as well.
One more question: how customizable is the product to adapt any organization unique processes and requirement that system can be configured to reflect changes on regular basis, especially when it comes to solutions and regulation and policies also? So
we help enable our customers and of course our partners to take all the Salesforce badges in order to help configure and customize the solution. But of course, we want to keep control of that to some extent so that we can continuously support you. We don't want you to end up with bespoke software. Okay, so that's where we very much work in partnership with yourselves and other integrators to ensure that you get the right solution for yourself, the right workflow, the right taxonomy. It is highly configurable, but off the shelf. Okay, so it's a product. It's not starting from scratch. It's a product, and then we tweak it to satisfy your requirements, and then we transfer knowledge so that you can make those changes yourself without necessarily relying on us or Protiviti, so long as we keep control of the software so that we can continue to support you and upgrade you, of course, as we invest in the product year on year.
Absolutely. And just to add on to on this as well, one of the following questions, a lot of our people ask that, yes, there is a solution that gets implemented, but how do we sustain that for a longer period of time? And that's where a 360-degree solution that I was talking about. Like I said, we provide end-to-end aspect when it comes to GRC framework, strategy, policies, procedure, because we have our dedicated IFA team, which we call it as Internal Audit and Financial Advisory. They are very strong when it comes to the content, and implementation gets done from our side. I belong to the tech space, and the product is, of course, Riskonnect. And for sustaining that is that managed services that we offer. So for you to make sure that all those compliances, policies and procedure gets regularly updated. We can take one last question probably, and it says, what is the total cost of ownership, including licensing, implementation, and ongoing support? So probably that would really depend upon requirement to requirement. But Charlie, if you want to touch upon on a high level.
I think this largely depends on your willingness to invest in a solution, people, process, and software. We have to understand that the Indian market is not going to pay the same amount as in more the markets we've come from, so the UK, US, Australia, Europe, and so on. So we are in partnership with Protiviti, consulting with prospective customers and customers of Protiviti to make sure that we do establish the right return on investment, but also to help you win business cases internally. I'm not going to disclose how much the software costs until we have private conversations, because I don't know everyone, obviously, in this forum. But what I can say is that we're aggressively targeting this market. We are going to make sure that we establish the right business case and support that with yourselves, thus elevating your position in the organization, but also looking at where we can start and making sure that we deploy a more future-proof integrated risk management solution. That doesn't give a perfect answer to the question, but certainly it leads into maybe another conversation we can have privately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I just projected our coordinates. Feel free to reach out any one of us if you have some requirement around this, and we will be helping you in this journey. Just final question, I think that's related to the last question. Will they have to purchase Salesforce licenses if we have to get this product?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. Great. I think thanks a lot. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks a lot to all of you who have joined. We have seen some tremendous participation, and I have projected the coordinates. I'll just project it again, and uh, fraud risk assessment. Yes, it can be leveraged because all in all, it's not just fraud risk assessment. Just completing one last question. Swapnil Shah has put it in the chat twice. Yes, all those risk assessment can be provided. The rules, the contents gets generated from our side. How do we implement it is using this Riskonnect solution. So we are right on time. I am just going to again project the coordinates. Please feel free to reach out to us, and we will be helping you in this journey for sure. And let us know if you have any kind of requirements in making sure to understand more about this, more about the product, more about the GRC framework. How do we make it centralized and make sure there is an end-to-end solution provided? So thanks a lot, everyone. We had a very, very nice participation. Thank you so much. This is for your reference, the coordinates, the emails, and the LinkedIn ID. We'll look forward touching upon with you, and look forward with working with you with some of you as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.